Want to call to order the Amberley Village Council meeting of April 11, 2022. Please call the roll.
Richard Bardak.
Here.
Ben Hunt.
Here.
Tom Youthing.
Here.
Keely Paul.
Here.
Bob Rosen.
Here.
Jay Schatz.
Here.
Natalie Wolf.
Here.
Scott Larmer.
Here.
Andrew Kakey.
Here.
Chief Wallace.
Here.
And if everyone could please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda this evening is our minutes from our last regularly scheduled meeting. Those minutes were circulated in advance. There was one change, and that change was also circulated to council members. Are there any further changes? Seeing none, we can consider those minutes approved. We'll now move to the finance report for February 2022.
Thank you, Mayor. In the packet, you have a memo that summarizes the UAN report from the month of February. And just to put that into some perspective, I'll give you a couple of numbers to focus on. The earnings tax, which is our largest revenue source for the village, for the month of February, we collected $147,000 in earnings tax. That brings our year-to-date number to $435,000. Which represents about 12% of what we have collected so far. So our estimate for the year is $3.4 million, so we're at 12% at the end of February. We did receive property tax, and for those newer council members, we typically ask for an advance on property tax. So that's what we received this year. Typically, the county auditor sends us our property tax revenues, sometimes in April, sometimes in May, but here in the village, we ask for that money as soon as it becomes available. So that was actually booked in the month of February in the amount of $515,000 for the general fund. The revenue for, the total revenue for the month of February totaled $775,000. And that represents about 19% of what we have estimated to collect during the year, which is $5.7 million. On the expense side, for the month of February, we had about $539,000 worth of expenses. Our year-to-date expenses exceed just a little over $1 million. So we are currently standing at about 17% of the 2022 budget has been spent. Our budget for 2022 is $6.1 million. And then we concluded the month of February with an unencumbered general fund balance of $5.5 million. And that concludes my report.
Are there any questions for the manager? Okay, we'll now move on to committee reports, and the first committee is the Finance Committee. And as chair of the Finance Committee, before you this evening is Ordinance 2022-2. This ordinance really does two primary things. As we've discussed at previous meetings, the village has received half of approximately $370,000, and will receive the remainder of that $370,000 in the next month. These funds were part of the American Rescue Plan, which was enacted by Congress and signed by the President in 2021. We have been looking at what we could use those funds since we have received those. And recently, they came out with some additional guidance, which makes it easier to determine how to use those funds. Prior to that additional guidance, it was not clear that the village would be able to use those funds. But now, what the additional guidance does is it allows local communities to basically, similar to what we do with our income taxes, elect a standard allowance. And under the guidance, they basically have said you can elect up to $10 million. We only received $370,000. So we can basically say that the funds that we've received are replacing revenues that we lost, and there will be no questions asked further. So the one thing that this ordinance does is basically gives the village manager and the finance director the authority to submit the forms and basically utilize the standard allowance. In addition, what the ordinance would do, and the Finance Committee met and reviewed this, is that we think that a logical use of the funds is to use the funds in our streets program. In 2022, as part of the streets program, we are doing the largest bit of the work as far as dollar amounts on North and South Farmcrest, and the village's portion of that alone is between 1.4 and 1.5 million. Having gone out and bid that work, which is consistent with what the government expects you to do, we think that's a good use of the funds. And so the Finance Committee has recommended that we basically use the funds for that. And then the third thing that this ordinance does is it basically does a appropriation to allow the funds to come out of this local fiscal recovery fund, which is Fund 2152, and go into the streets fund. Now, as for new council members, normally when we have an ordinance that has a additional appropriation, we can pass that with no further reading. That is something that can be done right on the first reading. But because this does more than that, what tonight's reading on Ordinance 2022-2 is a first reading, and my intention, if nothing comes up between now and the May meeting, is that I would move to waive the third reading and pass it on the second reading next month. But I think it makes the most sense if we can wait another month to pass this. Makes the most sense to allow the time to pass in case someone else has some other ideas of what we should use the funds for, or something like that. So this is the first reading of that ordinance. I will be glad to take any questions at this point. Seeing no questions, again, that'll come up at our next meeting, and as far as the second reading and possibly waiving the third reading. We'll now move on to the Police and Fire Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. From the Police and Fire Committee, we'd like to propose Resolution 2022-11 in order to promote public awareness and to show appreciation to Amberley Village staff involved with the public safety telecommunication operations. This week is National Public Safety Telecommunications Week. It is recognizing those who celebrate, or it's a time to recognize and celebrate those who dedicate their lives to serving the public. And it's celebrated this year, April 10th through April 16th, in order to celebrate their work. Our public safety telecommunications staff are referred to as the Amberley Village Dispatch and are on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They mitigate and direct a variety of responses for all calls, including crimes in progress, fires, life squad runs, alarms, and auto accidents, to name just a few. Dispatchers provide a critical piece of the equation to solving any situation, emergency or not, that occurs in the village. So combined, the 5 full-time and 3 part-time dispatchers of the Amberley Village team have over 138 years of knowledge and experience that continue to provide service, safety, and protection for officers and residents of the village. We appreciate their dedication and service to the village, and at this point, I'd like to move that Resolution 2022-11 be moved.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we approved Resolution 2022-11, proclaiming April 10 to 16 as National Public Safety Telecommunications Week. Are there any questions or comments? The one comment I would make is the those staff in that room are, I mean, all of our staff are incredible. But I think those staff, they have to deal with all kinds of different things when the people walk in this building. And they always do it with a smile. I am guilty of always going in there when I see the flag at half-mast and saying, you know, what's it for? And they are always very knowledgeable, and it really is incredible that they are able to do everything with such a great smile and deal with, you know, a wide variety of people, including me. So I think they are great people. So it's been moved and seconded that we adopt Resolution 2022-11. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Be it noted that that resolution passes unanimously. And I assume that concludes your
That
report.
concludes my report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we'll now move on to Public Buildings and Parks Committee.
We met last week on April 4th to discuss a proposal by the We Thrive Health and Wellness Committee to do a trial of pick-up pickleball on the 2 pickleball-lined courts in the municipal park. So the current rules do not allow for reserving space, and time must be yielded at the hour mark if there is a line. If there's a line. However, the current rules do allow for the council to grant an exception to these rules, so we're moving within the existing code. So as I said, they want to do a trial of pickup pickleball, and they want to have 1.5 hours, 1 day a week. They are promoting this in both the newsletter and the e-news, and it will be open to the public. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. And so based on this, they really were very compelling, and we really think it's a great addition to the community to give people an opportunity to learn more about pickleball and to build pickleball skills. So I would like to make a motion to allow the We Thrive Health and Wellness Committee to use the 2 pickleball-lined courts for 1.5 hours, 1 day a week, from May to August of 2022, so this is a trial period, for pickup pickleball.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we provide the village manager the authority to put in place the ability for the We Thrive Committee to utilize the pickleball courts for 1.5 hours, 1 day a week, from May through August. Are there any questions or comments?
I think this is great. I don't know who's on the We Thrive committee at the moment, but I think that's what the We Thrive Committee and the Human Rights Commission, I mean, that's what those committees are designed to do, is to generate ideas, bring them to council, to make Amberley a better place for everybody, a more fun place, more activities, things to do, and to engage with each other. So
Sherry
I'm
and Phil.
excited. I hope it works out.
Sherry and Phil Logan came to the meeting and spoke, and they were very genuinely excited about this.
Any other questions?
I'm not sure what the cost would be, but I'm sure it'd be minimal. Have we thought about some special sign or banner that we put up that welcomes pickleball players to Amberley? Just something playful and happy that acknowledges we're happy. I mean, we may have a lot of new people coming in.
We have not thought about it, but that's a good suggestion.
It's a new audience and
It
just
is.
something that is welcoming.
Thank you.
That's right. Right.
So last year, recall that we had a Yoga on the Lawn banner, and so we do search for topics to put on the hillside banner. So the pickleball, as that becomes active, would be one of our contenders, yes.
Okay, are there any other questions? If not, it's been moved and seconded that we give the authority to the village manager to put in place this 1.5 hour period. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Being noted that that resolution passes unanimously. And that concludes your report. We'll now move on to the manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I had 3 items I wanted to highlight from the manager's report. First, the gas and electric aggregation program this past year has been successful. Our residents saved over $97,000 in the electric aggregation program, so that's a very attractive program. We encourage residents to be part of our aggregation program because we are able to create a savings for them. So spread $100,000 out over our residents. So that's pretty significant. On the gas side, it was not quite as good, but we are making headway there. The gas is more difficult as we hedge our losses with against Duke Energy. On that side of it, we came up a little bit short, about $2,500. So the savings was not there, but certainly keep that in perspective as we move forward. And we have made some adjustments with the natural gas rate, but that's a very different market than the electric residential rate. The second item I wanted to mention is in regards to Pepsi. Pepsi Beverage, which is located on Cybrook here in the village, is doing a small expansion of about 4,400 square feet. They've added a few things over the past few years, primarily with their ability to create and fill their bottles. This time they are doing a 4,400 square foot expansion for a water treatment facility, so it's related to their particular situation. So I believe that will enable them to do just a little bit more in terms of production. And the third item I wanted to mention is that this is our last council meeting before the May 3rd election, where our residents will be asked to vote for the police levy. That is issue 6 as you go to the ballot. So I just wanted to share a little bit of information for our residents. The money generated from this 5-year police levy will generate an estimated $1.3 million. So that $1.3 million is a small amount of the police department's budget of $3.7 million. But it is significant. It's a dedicated source of funds that it can only be used for police department operations. The levy is relied upon to ensure that our police department continues to operate in the manner that it does with the level of service as well as with the existing personnel. Now, because the levy is a renewal, homeowners will pay the same amount that they have been paying. So between 2018 and 2022, our residents were paying this police levy at 8 mills. Nothing is changing moving forward for the next 5 years. So this issue 6 will not raise taxes. So that's a very important part of this. And the one thing that is interesting is we do have a web page that's dedicated to this. There's quite a bit of information that residents can go to. And I think one of the most creative things that has been put on that web page is that you can actually go into that web page and there is a place where you can find out what that tax is actually going to cost you. So the auditor already calculates it. So anytime there is a levy, the Hamilton County Auditor's Office goes through that process. All you do is go into your address, and it'll show you how much that police levy is going to cost. You know, in the past, we've always talked about homes valued at a certain amount. Well, this is precise. This is right on because you're currently paying it now, and it'll show you what you're going to be paying in the future. The levy does fund about 36% of our police department. The rest of that money comes from the village's general fund. And even though the 2017 police levy was approved by 85% of the voters here in the village, I do want to encourage residents to check out the website and certainly to ask questions, whether it's of me, Chief Wallace, or council members. And I would encourage residents to become more familiar with what that levy funds. And Chief is going to talk a little bit later about the open house that's being held. I'm sure that item will come up in the open house later this month. So that concludes my report. Just encourage residents to vote on May the 3rd.
Are there any questions for the manager? Does the Pepsi expansion mean any jobs at all?
At this point, it does not, but it can lead to more jobs. Yes.
All right. Moving on to the chief's report.
Thanks, Mayor. Like the manager mentioned, we're going to have our open house. It'll be on April 28th. There'll be 2 different time frames. where it's going to be 1 p.m. to 3 p.m., and again from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m., just so we're able to catch everyone, either people that are off as well as when people get off work at night. We're hoping we should have a great turnout from the police department. The whole goal of this is to get people to get to know their officers, learn what the department does. We've put a little video together, and it's basically going to be on like a movie theme. Be popcorn, and there'll be some prizes we're giving out at both sessions. And then we'll have a question and answer session. We had a handful of people that came in, did a short video thing, just talking about their reactions, to the police department, as well as their interactions with the police department and how things go. This in general is really not going to, our talks and things like that are not going to focus on the levy as much as we're focused on the police department, and we want the residents really to know what kind of service we provide, what we do, and how they better can get to know us and how we can continue to work together. When I did a video today, it was interesting because you talk about all the crime that's been occurring in all these other communities. A couple of the other well-to-do communities have had a rash of burglaries again this year and last year, and we continue to knock on wood to where our crime statistic is very, very low and continues to stay down there. But I credit that to the personnel we hire. We hire personnel and we focus on being proactive instead of reactive, and that shows. But I also stress that our residents are so much more apt to call now for the smallest thing, which in turn, a lot of times people are always afraid to call because they're afraid that they're calling to bother us. But what we're seeing now over the past 10 years, if you see something, say something. And the manager has stressed that over and over with us. And with this, by working together, we continue to reduce crime and make our community safer. So that's really all I have. Thanks.
Any questions for the chief? Okay, we'll move on to the mayor's report. And as I mentioned at the last meeting, I attended the annual meeting with Hamilton County Public Health, which provides our health services. And just a few comments from that meeting. For the third straight year, the cost to the village is going to be held flat. They have, as you would expect, in the middle of a pandemic, they have grown significantly, but they have found a lot of other funding sources to help pay for the cost. And so our cost will be held flat at, I think it's around $11,000 a year is our cost to the Hamilton County Public Health. And all villages and townships are required to get their public health services from Hamilton County Public Health, and many cities also contract with Hamilton County Public Health to get those services. But they do a lot. I mean, obviously, a lot of the meeting was talking about the pandemic, and they were, this was about a month ago, so they were optimistic that we are trending in the right direction and they're still in the same place. But they do a lot for us besides just dealing with the pandemic. One section that they went through with us was focusing on a healthy environment. They do a lot of inspections of landfills. They do extensive inspections of construction and demolition sites, and also restaurant inspections. They do, and obviously Amberley Village doesn't have a lot of restaurants, but even the restaurant at the J would be subject to those inspections. They do a lot on disease prevention, and specifically in two areas that they've been focused on in 2021/2022 is tuberculosis and sexually transmitted infections. And then we talk in this committee or in council about We Thrive. We Thrive came up earlier this evening. We Thrive is an initiative of Hamilton County Public Health. And every time we have a meeting, be it the We Thrive Health and Wellness Committee or our Environmental Stewardship Committee, there's someone there from Hamilton County Public Health. So I think we get a lot of that good value from Hamilton County Public Health, and I think they're doing a great job. Next thing I wanted to comment on, the next meeting of the Environmental Stewardship Committee will be April 25th at 7 o'clock. And again, that will be down in the community room. The annual one-stop drop is coming up on May 1st. That is from noon to 3 up at Amberley Green. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was we're going to have our annual Arbor Day / Earth Day celebration next Thursday, April 21st at 5:30. And that will be on village grounds. And we'll do the planting of a tree, and we'll discuss Earth Day and some other things like that. And that concludes my mayor's report. Are there any questions or comments?
I received both of my COVID boosters from Hamilton County Public Health. And they do a lot of things, a lot of big things that people easily recognize. They do small things every day for the community, and I think they provide a great service.
Yeah, and another thing that, for birth certificates and death certificates in Hamilton County, that's where you would go to get them. Okay, we'll now move on to new business. I know. Any new business?
I'm not going to jinx us, but since we appear to be out of winter, never know in Cincinnati, I want to raise up the work of our maintenance department this season. They always do an amazing job, and we don't need a map. We know where the Amberley line and Cincinnati line is on every snowy day. But such a tricky season with ice and snow and ice and working through the middle of the night. I think they did a phenomenal job. And Scott tells me we have about 165 potholes, which I believe is a low count, but they're busy filling those now and doing a good job at that. So why don't you raise up their work?
Thank you. And next month, we will have both, this month we're celebrating National Public Safety Telecommunications. Next month, we'll be celebrating both National Police Week as well as the week for our maintenance workers. Anyone else beside? I know that the Vice Mayor has something to say. Anyone else? I will turn it over to you.
I have a couple things to say, actually.
Okay.
First of all, I did not mean to exclude the Environmental Stewardship Committee when I listed the ad hoc committees of citizens who bring things to council, because they do also fantastic work. And along those lines, I want to mention that in just, what is today, the 11th?
It's 11.
Tomorrow, you say you have to work quickly. The Shomri Olam, which is the Jewish Environmental Advocates of Cincinnati, will be collecting light bulbs and used batteries in front of the JCC. Do you know a time for that? Noon to 5. No, that's something else. 5 to 6:30. 5 to 6:30 p.m. These are things that we want to keep out of the landfill and will not be collected at one drop. Tomorrow. Yeah, last minute, but clean out your house tonight. And so, anyway, after burying the lead, as they say, Scott and I sold our house. It was like that. Surprise, surprise. And we have to be out of it by May 11th. So May 9th will be my last meeting of council. And I'm going to really miss everybody because we will be moving most likely out of Amberley, but definitely out of my district. So it's been a real honor to serve all of these years, and I think I'll be here on May 9th, and I will probably have more to say and think about before then. But anyway, so you're all the first to know we've been keeping this like under heavy-duty wraps. Scott didn't say a word at the BZA meeting last week because we didn't want to jinx anything. So anyway,
Natalie, if you stay in the
we're homeless,
village,
actually.
if you stay in the village, I'm sure we could somehow swap me, B, and you
I
at
don't know.
large.
I don't know if that's kosher.
And I will reserve some words for you
Thanks.
at the next meeting, but it has been thoroughly enjoyable serving you.
I'm kind of sad, emotional, just saying it.
Okay, anything else? If not, we consider the meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.